Citrine spindle circled its gas giant like a luminous wheel, all glitter and advertising screens from the outside, all patched welds and tired pumps on the inside. In the lantern truss, where the station's ribs showed through the walls, a human lay on his back in a maintenance crawl and argued softly with a junction box. Arun Nayar listened to the tone of the current more than he watched the diagnostics. Someone had forced incompatible Khelarin and Sythrari cabling into a human-made coupler years ago, wrapped it in tape and hoped. Now it crackled with the petulant anger of a system asked to do too much. "Yeah, I'd be mad too," he muttered, prying corroded clamps free. He rerouted load, added a recycled support brace and sealed the panel. The faint buzz in the air smoothed into a deeper hum. The console blinked green. Arun did not smile for the screen. He smiled because the corridor's air felt less tense. His stomach growled. He checked the time on his sleeve, 12 p.m. station standard. "Lunch," he told the bulkhead and headed up toward the jade span. The market ring's scents, spices, sugar, oils hit him halfway up the lift. Noise hit a moment later. Voices in trade in Khelarin, the crystalline clicking speech of Sythrari, the hiss of friars. Arun threaded through the crowd toward his favorite noodle stall, where Yuliya was already leaning on the counter. "You're late," the pilot said. "I was about to eat your portion in the name of efficiency." "The junction objected," Arun replied. "I had to persuade it." Yuliya rolled her eyes. "You talk more nicely to pipes than to people. Sit." He sat, took the steaming bowl the vendor slid his way, and let himself enjoy for a moment the simple feeling of hot food and a working station. He liked watching systems from a little distance. The jade span was its own machine, money and gossip and cargo contracts flowing in loops, sometimes clogging, sometimes sparking. He watched Khelarin dockhands in rich blue, Sythrari envoys in smooth carapace shells, human kids racing between stalls. One of those kids was not human. The collision happened in a blink. A small Khelarin girl, her crest spines a soft green, stumbled in the crowd. Something intricate fell from her arms, struck the deck and shattered. She crashed to her knees with it, a choked cry tearing through the market noise. Arun's hand shot out, steadying his bowl. The vendor cursed at the near miss. The girl clutched the fragments in both hands, claws scraping metal. Two adults in plain dark clothes pushed through the crowd with practiced efficiency. Their eyes scanned for threats, not tears, bodyguards, not parents. "Lirae," one snapped in Khelarin, then switched to trade for wider effect. "Up, we must move," she didn't seem to hear. "It broke," she whispered more to herself than anyone else. It was from she bit off the rest, throat tight. Arun slid off his stool and crouched, careful not to touch her uninvited. The broken object had been beautiful once, interlocking rings and ribbons of metal and crystal. Now they lay in pieces, gleaming in the grime. "Hey," he said gently. "First step is not kneeling in traffic. Let's get you and this off the floor, yeah." Her eyes lifted to his face. She took in his stained coverall, the tool sling at his belt, the calm tone. Some part of her recognized fixer the way children did. "Can you fix it?" she asked, the words rough with held-in panic. One guard moved to interpose. "It is a child's toy," he said. "Sentimental only. We have no time for it. It was from my mother," Lirae blurted. "Please." The guard flinched. Orders warred with empathy and security protocol. The human was no one, officially maintenance staff, low clearance, but the girl's eyes. "You have 1 minute," the guard said tightly. "Then we leave." 1 minute, Arun echoed. That was nowhere near sufficient, but even a glance told him a lot. He coaxed the pieces into his hands and onto the corner of the noodle table with a pleading look to the vendor. The man huffed, waved permission. The market's noise dampened as nearby patrons watched. The broken thing was no child's toy. Inside the decorative shell, a dense lattice of energy channels and a multifaceted core glittered. Arun saw hairline cracks that weren't from the fall, but from long-term stress. Whoever had designed it had concentrated load in a single slender spine, for drama perhaps, or tradition. He murmured under his breath in his own language, the way he did when something was both beautiful and stupid. He needed a brace, something to spread load. "Yuliya," he said without looking up, "do you still have those docking clamp inserts?" "Of course," she said, and slid a small container his way. He snapped one ring, filed edges with a strip of abrasive cloth, bent it into a gentle curve and nested it around the core crystal. It seated with a click he felt in his bones. The tingling hum around the device smoothed. The guard staring at it sucked in breath as the crystal's light flared, then settled into a clear, steady glow. Arun's fingers moved fast now, reassembling outer rings, realigning filaments. It was a puzzle with only one satisfying answer. In just a couple of minutes he had it whole again with one new element at its heart, a simple, efficient ring almost invisible to anyone not looking. "Try it," he said, handing it back. Lirae's claws trembled as she twisted a ribbon the way she always had. The rings unfolded, spinning with hypnotic grace. Then, for the first time in its existence, the sculpture lifted off his palm and hovered in the air, spinning smoothly, a faint, strange halo outlining it. Gasps rippled around the stall. Even station-hardened workers paused. Lirae's breath caught. She had loved the ribbon gyro before. Now it felt alive. The guard recognized something far beyond a toy. Old briefings, forbidden murals, myths whispered in secure halls all clicked around the shape of the core. His mind spat up a name he had never expected to match to a physical object. Starheart Diadem. His scales prickled. The Emperor's missing crown jewel was floating over a noodle bowl, stabilized by a human scrap ring. He dropped his gaze fast, schooled his face. Whatever else happened, they had to get the object and the child out of public view. Arun, satisfied with the mechanics, collapsed the rings with a gentle tap. The object returned to its resting form in Lirae's hands. "It feels lighter," she whispered. "Won't crack so easily now," Arun said. "You had a lot of stress bottled up in there." He meant the device. She heard more. "Thank you," she said with a sincerity that landed deep. The guards hustled her away, the diadem locked in a padded case almost before she was out of the stall's shadow. Life on the jade span surged back to normal. The vendor grumbled about lost seats. Yuliya elbowed Arun and called him a show-off. He shrugged and finished his noodles. To him it was just one more broken thing fixed with what he had. Far away in a secure chamber on a Khelarin flagship, Emperor Versh Talkun watched a recording of that moment. Frozen in hollow, the human's hands cradled the unmistakable core. He had been told the diadem was destroyed, the price of putting down a rebellion. He had repeated that lie until it felt almost true. It had always nagged like an unsealed seam. "What exactly did he do?" Versh asked, jaw tight. His analyst replayed the sequence, overlays highlighting, crack lines disappearing, power flows evening. "He introduced a support brace at the core," the analyst said. "A simple ring but precisely placed. The diadem's energy output is now more stable than in any archived record." "Name," Versh said. "Arun Nayar, human, maintenance technician on Sythrari Spindle." Versh studied the frozen human face. No awe, no fear, just concentration. "Send a retrieval team to the station," he ordered. "Secure the diadem and my daughter. Find this human. If he can do this by accident, I want to know what he can do on purpose." On the far side of known space, in crystalline halls of the Sythrari conquered, Envoy Caldris Ven watched the same feed. His multifaceted eyes tracked Arun's hands. He had flagged humans long ago as interesting emergent variables. Reckless, adaptive, disturbingly willing to rewire things others considered fixed. Watching one casually tame the heart of a rival empire's myth delighted him. "Contact my liaison on Sythrari Spindle," he said. "We must meet this human before the Emperor locks him in a golden cage." Sythrari Spindle itself felt nothing of the distant calculations. It only recorded sensor spikes, energy anomalies, and the sudden uptick in security traffic orders mentioning one Arun Nayar. He noticed the attention sitting on his shoulders like static, Khelarin guards loitering near his usual routes, station officers asking layered questions. He assumed it was about the fire suppression trick he had pulled recently, tapping decorative fountains into the system during a malfunction. Then two armored Khelarin waited outside a junction in the Ember vents. "Arun Nayar," one said, "you are to accompany us, for your protection." "Funny," Arun said. "I feel safer before you said that." "You handled sensitive imperial property without authorization," the other added. "Questions must be answered." "Ah," he thought, the toy. "I have a shift schedule," he tried. "Talk to my supervisor." The first guard's hand hovered near a suppression weapon. Now, fear stirred finally, but so did stubbornness. Too many generations of humans had stepped into protective custody and vanished. He reached toward the valve he had been working on. At least let me shut this down safely, or you'll have a real incident. They watched him twist metal, grudgingly recognizing competence. Then they led him away. The corridor they chose was quiet, too quiet. Cameras watched from the corners. Halfway down it, a pipe on the left exploded with a shriek of steam. Alarms blared. Instinct spun the guards toward the noise. A hatch on the right snapped open. A hand grabbed Arun's collar and yanked him into darkness. The hatch slammed, a jamming field crackled, blurring sensors. "Still breathing?" a low voice asked in trade. "Mostly," Arun coughed. "This day keeps getting weirder. Who are you?" The glowstrip clicked on. 3 Khelarin crouched with him in the narrow maintenance shaft, scales dulled from hard living, not polished for court. "We are Ember Cell," their leader said. "We do not intend to let the Emperor make you his pet mechanic." He had heard the name in muttered stories, a resistance group small enough to be dismissed, stubborn enough never to quite vanish. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "You touched the Starheart Diadem and survived," she said. "You did more than survive, you made it behave. That means the story they tell about it is a lie, or at least incomplete. We have waited generations for proof. Come, we don't have much time." As they scuttled through the lantern truss's forgotten arteries, she filled in what his lazy curiosity had not dug up on its own. "The diadem channeled jump fields in our early age," she said. "Over time, rulers wrapped it in prophecy. Only their blood, they said, could touch it safely. They turned a tool into a throne. They hoarded its schematics, disbanded independent engineering castes called dissidents heretics. And when it started cracking," Arun asked. "They blamed moral decay, not poor maintenance," she said grimly. "They tightened their grip. Some of us suspected the truth. Then the coup attempt. Smoke, blame, people dragged away in chains. The diadem vanished. He said it was destroyed, saving us all." She bared her teeth. "Now we see he hid it in a child's toy." Arun pictured Lurie's small arms wrapped around it. "She didn't know," he said. "No," the rebel leader agreed. "That's the tragedy. They will use her as a shield and a hostage unless we move." They reached Ember Cell's hideout, a widened shaft lined with scavenged chairs and a rough map of citrine spindle chalked on the wall. Names of power nodes, safe routes, and airlocks crisscrossed in different colors. On the other side of the station's diplomatic quarter, humans were also adjusting to new data. Admiral Leon Bracken listened as Dr. May Okafor summarized the rumor chain, cross-checked against station logs, and a clipped message from Khelarin officials about an unfortunate incident with a human technician. "So we have one of ours in the middle of their core myth," Bracken said. "Always thought we'd make our mark on the galaxy, just didn't picture it being in someone else's crown." May huffed. "The Resistance has contacted me quietly," she said. "They want our help. They see in Arun proof that the diadem isn't divinely restricted." Bracken's engineer's brain shuffled possible outcomes. If the Keller Dominion imploded, the Sythrari conquered might move in. If the Emperor reasserted control violently, the station could be a casualty. "What does Arun want?" he asked. "Last I checked, to finish his shift without being kidnapped," May said. "We need to find him, and then we need to decide if we're willing to do what humans do best." "Fix things no one asked us to touch," Bracken said. "Right." Hours later, a battered holoprojector on a crate brought humans, Ember Cell, and, unexpectedly, a Sythrari Envoy into the same room. Caldrus Ven had a knack for turning up where events converged. Endeavor's security had hesitated to let him aboard, but official channels and the threat of diplomatic incident had opened doors. He listened with polite fascination as Ember Cell's leader explained their goals, as May laid out cultural stakes, as Arun reluctantly sketched what he had actually done to the diadem. "All I did was give it somewhere else to put its stress," Arun said, using a piece of pipe and a rag to demonstrate. "Your design, their design channeled everything through one narrow spine, looked impressive, doomed to crack. Any push too hard and snap." He snapped the pipe with his hands for emphasis. "And you think this mechanical metaphor applies to politics?" Caldrus said, clicking thoughtfully. "It applies to anything carrying load," Arun said. Put too much onto one point, you make everything fragile. Spread it out, you get resilience. Bracken watched as his technician, who hated meetings, articulated in simple language what he'd spent his career trying to argue to boards and war councils. So we treat the Empire like a bad bridge, the Admiral said. Reinforce multiple supports. Make sure if one pillar fails, the whole thing doesn't land on everyone's heads. The Emperor won't like being compared to a beam, Ember Cell's leader said. He doesn't have to hear that part, May said. He just has to feel, suddenly, that his throne doesn't vanish if he lets go of some control. That gives him a selfish reason to accept changes. They sketched a plan. Lirae and the Diadem would be moved under heavy escort from Khelarin quarters to a secure contact chamber where her father would project in. Ember Cell knew the maintenance routes around that path better than anyone. Humans knew the station's broadcast architecture. The Sythrari knew how to slip sensor nets. They would intercept the convoy not with a bomb, but with a proposition and cameras. On the appointed day, Lirae sat in a cushioned transport, the case with her toy locked under her seat, stomach tight. Her handlers had told her nothing specific, only that security was elevated and her father expected strict obedience. The vehicle glided through dim corridors. Then it shuddered to a halt in a maintenance junction that looked like 100 others, pipes along walls, floor scuffed by boots. The hatch hissed. It opened not onto another polished hallway but onto a mixed knot of people. In front stood a human she recognized instantly. Behind him, Khelarin in rebel colors, humans in station uniforms, a Sythrari Envoy, Dr. May's composed face, Admiral Bracken's solid presence. Lirae's guards surged to shield her, weapons rising. Arun lifted empty hands. "No one's here to hurt you," he said. "We just don't want you and that thing under your seat to disappear into a vault." The escort commander hissed orders. "Fall back, close hatch." "Signal, don't," Lirae said, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. Wait. She had seen enough in the past days, the way adults murmured when they thought she slept, the way guards' eyes flicked to the case, to know something enormous sat beneath her bed. The only person who had treated it as both precious and fixable was this human. Her gaze met Arun's. "What did you do to it?" she asked. "Tell me the truth." "I made it stop fighting itself," he said. "And by doing that I broke a story your people have been living under for a long time. They say only your father's blood can touch it. I touched it. I didn't burn. Others can too. That means the story is wrong, or at least not the whole picture." Her pulse thudded in her throat. Fear, yes, but also relief. She had always suspected some of her tutors lied when they called others lesser. "You're asking me to stand against my father," she said. "I'm asking you to stand for a better version of what he could be," Arun said. "One where he doesn't have to pretend stars personally chose his skull as their favorite perch." Screens across Citrine's spindle flickered as station systems, coaxed and partially reprogrammed by human techs, Ember Cell hackers, and the quiet array, overrode regular programming. In bars and cabins and shuttle cockpits, feeds switched to live footage of that junction. People saw a human maintenance tech, a Khelarin princess, armed rebels, diplomats, and within moments an emperor. Versh's projection materialized in the confined space in a wash of formal light. He stood taller than those around him, robes etched with symbols of office, eyes blazing. "Daughter," he said, "come to me, bring the diadem, we will speak elsewhere." "No," Lirae said, voice shaking but audible. "We will speak here, in front of everyone." The world held its breath. "You do not understand," Versh began. "Then help me understand," she cut in. "Or let him show us." She pointed at Arun. The human felt naked under an emperor's gaze and billions of unseen ones. He did what he always did when nervous, reduce things to components. "Emperor Versh," he said, "with respect, arguing over destiny won't change the fact that your core device was about to fail catastrophically. Let's agree on the engineering first. After that you can yell at me for blasphemy." Against his will, a corner of Versh's mouth twitched. No one else spoke to him like this. No one else would have been allowed to. "Show me," he said coldly. "You claim to know the heart of my people's symbol. Lay it bare." Arun nodded to Lirae. "May I?" Her fingers tightened on the case. Then she unlocked it, lifted out the diadem, and placed it in his hands. The air buzzed. He set it on a makeshift stand, an upturned crate. May's projector threw a simple schematic above it, a stylized version of its internal structure. "This is what it looked like when I first saw it," Arun said. "Everything resting on one narrow spine, impressive when it flares, also a guaranteed fracture point." He highlighted crack lines, the blocked flow paths, the overloaded supports. He spoke in plain terms, the way he would to apprentices, and let me translate into metaphors for non-technicians watching. All authority in one person, no redundancy, no release valves. "Then I added this," he said, illuminating the ring. "A simple brace that shares the load. I also reopened these channels. The result," he tapped a control. The diadem unfolded and lifted, not in a wild, flickering storm, but in a steady halo. Its field washed over those nearest. "Feel that?" he asked. Lirae nodded. "Less sharp," she said. "It used to feel like it was angry." Ember Cell's leader, standing deliberately close, thrust her hand into the field. Loyalist guards flinched, expecting screams. She grimaced at a pins-and-needles sensation, then laughed aloud. "That's it," she said. "This is what we were supposed to fear." Legends of outsiders burning to ash in the diadem's glow curled and blackened in many minds watching, not from power but from exposure. "Try someone else," Arun said quietly. "Someone everyone recognizes." Versh understood what was being asked. His projection extended a hand toward the diadem, into the shared field with his daughter and a rebel. To refuse would be to admit fear. To accept was to gamble his aura on this human-s work. He stepped forward. Light flowed around his projected fingers, flickered along his crown, haloed his form. To those raised on temple paintings, it looked like a familiar miracle. Arun watched readouts on a small instrument May had patched into his sleeve feed. Output within safe parameters, no spikes, no warning flares. "Looks pretty," he said. "Still stable, good. A trick," one watching noble muttered on his comm halfway across the Dominion. "It must be falsified." "It is live," his aide whispered. "I checked the feeds, this is no pre-render." "Now let's get to the important part," Arun said and looked straight into the pickup. "This device is not choosing who is worthy. It's responding to inputs and structure. With the design I'm showing you, anyone properly trained can use it safely. That means you can stop pretending it's a magic wand only one bloodline can wave." "You accuse me of pretending," Versh said, soft and deadly. "I'm saying someone way back when decided it was useful to wrap your job in myth," Arun said. "Maybe you believed it, maybe you didn't, I don't know. What I do know is, if your whole empire depends on you personally standing in this field, that's stupid." He caught himself. With respect. The simplicity of the insult, wrapped in professional irritation, did more damage than 1,000 formal denunciations could have. Across Citrine Spindle, in Khelarin cities, aboard Sythrari ships, in human bars, people saw the same thing. A human maintenance tech refusing to treat a crown jewel as untouchable, describing it the way he'd describe a faulty pump. May added, her voice calm. "We aren't saying your people should bow to us. We're saying your survival should not hinge on one man and one cracked jewel. Share the knowledge, share the load. That's the offer." On the Imperial flagship, officers muttered frantic suggestions into private channels. Sever the feed, fire on the station, blame terrorists. Versh could feel that urge like a hot wire. He imagined his fleet's lances tearing through Citrine Spindle, the diadem reduced to molten glass, the princess' scream cut off. He also imagined his subjects, having seen this demonstration, being told afterward that the vision was a forgery, that nothing had changed. Some would believe him, enough would not. His control would drain slowly into 1,000 hairline fractures. His daughter's face tipped the balance. Hope and fear warred there. She did not hate him. She wanted him to choose not to break everything. "What do you propose?" he asked at last, each syllable costing. "A council," Ember Cell's leader said immediately. "A body with authority over the diadem's use. Technicians, not just nobles, people from outside your court." "You want to put rebels in my sanctum," Versh said. "I want you alive and your people not living in fear of a single point of failure," she replied. "If that makes us share a room, so be it." Caldris chimed in smoothly. The conquered would find such an arrangement reassuring. Shared stewardship of dangerous artifacts is in everyone's interest. Bracken raised a hand. "Humans will contribute engineers and safety protocols," he said. "We'll make the repair methods public. No one gets to own the blueprints. That's non-negotiable. Versh bristled. You expect me to let some dock rat publish the inner workings of the star throne of my ancestors? If you don't, Arun said quietly, you'll always be one accident away from blackout, and one angry crowd away from someone else taking this apart without supervision. Silence stretched. Outside in the gas giant's orbit, Khelarin battleships slid into attack positions. Sythrari cruisers answered with mirrored maneuvers. Endeavor's reach eased closer to the station's hull, auxiliary tugs rigged between it and spindle like extra braces. Admiral, came a terse voice in Bracken's ear, Dominion guns are charging. There it was, old momentum. Orders sent before anyone in the chain knew the myth had just been gutted. Hold, Bracken said to his crew. Interpose, we don't fire unless they shoot first. If anything hits the station, we're patching holes and pulling people out until we can't. Yuliya's fingers flew over her shuttle controls. Omar checked triage bays. Ordinary humans prepared to do something extraordinary and utterly familiar, stand between vulnerable people and incoming fire with whatever tools they had. On the flagship, a weapons officer waited for the final authorization code. A standby light flashed. The code arrived. It was not the one she'd expected. Stand down. Defensive posture only. No firing without explicit renewed order. She exhaled in a rush, shoulders sagging. Around her, crew let out breaths they didn't know they'd held. In the junction, Versh straightened on his projection dais. We will form this council, he said. We will open the Diadem's workings to chosen engineers. He almost choked on that word. We will no longer claim that only my blood may touch it, but do not mistake this for abdication. I remain who I am. No one here asked you to vanish, May said. Only to stop pretending you're a law of physics. Arun powered the Diadem down, easing it back into a quiet state. You share the load, the system lives longer, he said simply. That applies to devices and rulers. The broadcast lingered on the image of an emperor, a princess, a rebel, a human, a Sythrari, and an admiral, all standing within arm's reach of one untouchable power. Then slowly, feeds dropped back to normal content. Normal was different now. In the following days, the Keller dominion seethed. Some nobles denounced the changes as heresy. Others, tired of walking on metaphorical cracked glass, lent their names to the new council. Ember Cell split. Some members declared any compromise betrayal. Others saw it as the first real opening in generations. The Sythrari sent observers and careful offers. Humans sent engineers. Arun found himself in front of a mixed room of Khelarin techs, human apprentices, and one very curious Sythrari junior, explaining how to spot stress patterns in crystals and when to add support rather than more raw power. Think of every system as something that wants to fail in the easiest way possible, he said. Your job is to make sure that failure doesn't kill anyone. You don't need a crown to understand that. Later he sat in a small, less formal meeting with Lirae, now kept in a secure but much more open environment. My tutors are furious, she said with a small smirk. They had entire lesson plans built around the idea that only I could ever stand near the diadem. They're having to rewrite them. Good, Arun said. Everyone should have to rewrite their manuals sometimes. Do you regret it? She asked. Fixing it that day, before you knew what it was. He thought about long hours in tight shafts, about a near abduction, about standing in the glare of an emperor's scrutiny. No, he said. I'd have fixed it anyway. It was broken. You were sad. That was enough. But now you're on a council, she pointed out. Sort of famous. That part I could live without, he admitted. I like pipes better than politics. But if sitting in a few meetings keeps people from turning tools into idols again, I can put up with bad coffee. Bracken visited once before his ship pulled out. You did well, the Admiral said. I just did what I always do, Arun replied. This time someone was recording. That, Bracken said, is humanity's quiet advantage. We treat empires like engines. We're not impressed enough to leave them humming dangerously. News feeds across several species started telling a new kind of story about humans. Not just as tenacious, not just as reckless survivors, but as system fixers. Species who, when given access to the heart of a problem, would roll up their sleeves and take it apart. Weeks later, back in the Lantern Truss, a salvage crew chief called Arun to a dim bay. Got something weird, she said. Old wreck drifted in. This was in its guts. Doesn't match any catalog, it hums, just a little. We poked it, nothing blew up. Figured before we got clever we'd show it to you. On the deck sat a device the size of a small shuttle pod, all smooth curves and etched lines that caught the light strangely. Symbols crawled along its surface in no alphabet he recognized. It felt deeper than Khelarin design, older than the Concords, utterly indifferent to current politics. May stood to one side with a recorder, eyes bright. No known matches, she said. Whatever built this died or left a long time ago, or is still out there. Arun walked around it slowly, hands behind his back. The faint buzzing at the edge of hearing reminded him, uncomfortably, of the diadem before he'd braced it, multiplied many times. Same deal as always, the salvage chief said. Dangerous and valuable. Everyone's going to want a say in what to do with it. Then we'd better start by understanding it, Arun said, before someone claims it as proof they're chosen. He crouched, peered at a seam, and felt that familiar, stubborn excitement. Somewhere in the depths of this object, something was badly wired. Somewhere beyond it, other hands might be waiting or gone. His people had a reputation now. They were the ones who heard a crack, saw a myth, and thought first of surgery, not worship. Citrine's spindle turned, shedding light across the bay. Humans and aliens alike gathered just outside the marked line on the floor, watching the human step forward to touch the unknown. He rested his palm on the ancient surface, felt the hum change, and did what he always did. He began to look for where it could break, and how to make sure when it did, it would not take everyone with it.